Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and welcome to my astrology channel. On this video, I'm looking at the month ahead, January 2021 for Virgo. Now, it's an intriguing thing, but I think all of us, in a funny kind of way, we get into a new year and we want it straight off the bat to show us that it is a new year and it is different. But of course, astrology, the planets, they don't know about our calendar. They don't know about January the 31st marking the end of a year and the beginning of a new one coming in. So, in many cases and for many reasons, we've still got the effects of 2020 flowing with us as we enter 2021. And January might be a bit of a challenging month generally. But by the time we get into the middle of February, I think we'll start to see a difference, and I think we're going to start to feel the character of 2021, which is so different. As you know from some of the other videos I've done, this idea of Aquarius now coming in and giving us an Aquarian flavor is very different. But it may take us a few weeks to really start to experience that. So let's start straight away by looking at your horoscope here. And here we have Virgo. And let me make that a little bigger because it's difficult to see when it's teeny. There we are, we see that a little bit better. And what I want to draw your attention to, first of all, here we are, Virgo rising. Virgo, you are the principal in this astrological drama. So here you are in the first house. And here's all these planets grouped together in this sector of the horoscope. And that's one of the reasons these last few months have been so incredibly intense. When you have a kind of a series of planets held in a small section of the zodiac circle, it will give you that intensity. And it makes life very difficult. It makes it difficult in terms of world events and, of course, in our own individual lives. But the areas of interest to us for you in January are the 5th house here and the 6th house. So we're very much in the area of creativity and also in the area of work and well-being. I'm going to take the sun's passage through the 5th house first of all, because this is rather a nice area of your horoscope. I mean, sometimes people have trouble with the idea of being creative. I often say that to my clients and they say, oh, no, I'm not the least bit creative. But then they forget, they can be creative with finances, they can be creative in the kitchen. And whenever we put our whole self into something, that's being creative. We're putting our personal stamp on something, even if it's a special event, anything like that is a creative event. But of course, creative also means procreative. So we're looking at things to do with children and babies. So when the sun moves through this area of the horoscope, it's time to get busy, whether it is with your own offspring or whether it is the idea of adding to your family. And of course, we can add to our family being grandparents and aunts and uncles and all those godmothers, godfathers, those kind of roles as well. But I think it's also what's happening in the lives of your children. And often when the sun moves through this area, we are very concerned with what our children are up to. Whether they're small children and they're going to school for the first time, whatever it may be, or whether they're big grown-up children who have lives and concerns of their own, we become very much more involved with them. Creativity is also enterprising. So this is an important area if you have your own business or you're thinking of doing something of a creatively business nature, because this is the time that you can start networking, talking to people, building your business plan, getting a creative endeavor off the ground. It's also an area to do with romance. And although romance in the bigger sense is all sorts of things that take us out of ourselves, it's also about relationships. And I think there's quite a lot going on for not every Virgo, but most Virgos in the area of romance, because something has to be sorted with a relationship. Where's it going? Where's it been going? Let's make some decisions, okay? Now, the other area that's of interest is the 6th house as well. And that starts to become a little bit more interesting by the time we get to the 19th of the month. And in fact, there are a sort of sharp difference between the first half of the month and the second half. And I'll expand on that shortly by looking at some of the other things. But just broadly, in terms of where the sun is highlighting your chart, we're also looking at the sixth house, which, yes, is to do with work. It's also to do with your lifestyle. And Jupiter and Saturn have just moved in there. They're going to be long term residents, and they're going to make a big difference to your lifestyle and also the way you work, how you work, and what you work in. And with the sun moving over that area as well, we get a kind of aperitif, a feeling of what that might be. Jupiter should and could expand the area of work this year, so you'll have more work. That might be good news or might be bad news, but there's definitely more work and perhaps more recognition for your work. And this is something I've talked about on your year ahead forecast, which you can get on Astrolutely, my website online, and that will fill you in with a little bit more detail about the year. But this idea of lifestyle is also about life routines. I mean, when we think our daily lives constitute waking up in the morning, perhaps making a cup of tea, getting the kids off to school, going to work, whatever else it will be, what we do during a day gives our life a shape and texture. And when the sun moves through this area, it's time to sort of really look at how our lives are shaped. And perhaps we could make it more efficient by not doing certain activities and not perhaps doing things the way we do them. We can actually give ourselves more free time or more creative time. And I think also with January being a time of detoxing, we're all very comfortable with the idea of, doing something that detoxes our physical bodies, but we forget about detoxing our relationship life or other aspects of our life. I think that's really important. And this idea of starting as you mean to go on in January is perhaps recognizing what activities, what people you spend time with, and you really don't need to spend time with those people. I'm not saying they're toxic, but maybe they're time wasting and they're preventing you from doing all sorts of other things that would be much more important to you. Now, this idea of detoxing is a little bit like purging, isn't it? And this month has got quite a theme of that because of this planet here, Pluto. Pluto, the key words are elimination and transformation. In other words, you've got to get rid of stuff in order to be transformed and made better. Okay, that's simple. And as we open the month of January, Mercury is making its way to Pluto. It's going to be conjunct Pluto on the 5th. And we've got this idea of a purge of some description. Ideally, we need to get behind it ourselves. And of course, around that time, 5th and 6th of January, we take down the Christmas decorations and really clear away Christmas past. So that's one way of focusing or reflecting this idea of getting rid of stuff and clearing a space for the new to grow, to come through. But I would also say it is a time, and how often does this happen over the Christmas period? We want things to be great. And of course, this Christmas has been really not great for a lot of people. So many things to do with the coronavirus have made it very, very difficult. But even so, at Christmas, we want to love everybody. We want things to be perfect, and often it isn't. And we often realize we're not in the right relationship, or we don't want to go back to that job. We've got problems. The kids are in the wrong school. There's so many things that come up during that Christmas period. And so by the 5th, it's time to really deal with it. It's time to discuss, to have meetings, to have all sorts of get togethers where we can really figure out what we want to do about a situation. And it's probably a challenging situation. It's not easy. And even if you come to the 5th and 6th of January and everything's been easy peasy, Pluto is a strong feature of the entire month of January, because on the 14th, the Sun conjoins Pluto, and then on the 28th, Venus conjoins Pluto. So we have a constant kind of process of getting rid of stuff, clearing a space, having to deal with elephants in the living room. All those kind of things are kind of a common theme throughout the month. Well, I did say earlier on it was a kind of month of two halves. And that's also because as the sun moves into Aquarius, we suddenly get this whole new tone, shape, texture to life. And what happens at that time, well, on the following day, the planet Mars up here gets together or comes in conjunction with planet Uranus. Now, that's a very controversial, volatile kind of influence. And of course, it will be building about 5 days before that. So from the middle of the month, we start to get intimations of changes coming in, of things happening that are going to be disruptive and maybe even a little uncomfortable. But we need change. And of course, if we can get behind our own change, that's marvelous. You know, it's adapting, it's accepting, it's diversification, awakenings. These are the words we need to use with Uranus, not always disruptive and upsetting and revolutionary and all of that. Yes, Uranus is all of those things, but that planet is also the planet of awakenings. And I think if we keep it there, we can make a lot of use of that by being aware of the things that really need to happen in our lives. And we really need to be aware of what's really important to us. Now, of course, the 20th is Inauguration Day over in the United States. So President Biden is taking over a new administration. And this is very controversial. Around that time, there are going to be, well, it's predictably, you don't need to be an astrologer to say there are going to be some protests. Of course there are. But I think what we're probably not seeing here is just this groundswell of massive great change that's going to happen with this administration. And maybe some of these protests, instead of being perhaps what they have been, are going to be a little bit, more explosive and more disruptive. But there's the rest of the world to consider at that time as well. Everybody shares this Mars-Uranus influence. And although it can create waves, and when we think what waves do, they toss us this way and that way. But I think we want to also see that things have got to change. They can't always change smoothly and gradually, and that Uranus helps us move quickly and sometimes violently to a new phase of our lives. And so keep that in mind, Virgo, as we get to the 20th of the month. A little bit further on, we get to 28th, 29th, we have the Sun conjunct Jupiter. And that's usually a very, very exuberant kind of influence. And certainly if you're beginning something at that time, my goodness, the promise of that time is great. But like all things, it's on a full moon. We've got closure and completion. So we have endings in there. We've got Saturn in the midst as well, which can also be constructive, but also constricting. So that period of the month is really many things, many mixed influences. But the stronger tone is this idea of something beginning that's going to be great and good. I did mention relationships to you a little earlier on, and I think why January is an important month is that there has to be a decision about a relationship. Now, for some Virgos, that relationship is a romantic relationship or it's a marriage. For others, it's more about a friendship or a business relationship. But whatever it is, it's got to be done. And there is no point dragging it over into, a year when you want to make a fresh start, when there is just too much that's wrong about it. And so if a relationship does go belly up, middle, end of January, really see it as a blessing. And I'm not trying to diminish the upset it might cause and the pain it might cause. But honestly, once you're through the pain barrier, you are going to see that it was a wonderful liberation. So as we come to the very end of the month, here we have Mercury again turning retrograde. And it will be retrograde right through until the 21st of February. And although we all moan and groan about retrograde Mercury, as it slows up the wheels of commerce and communication, but it does a lot of other good things too. It enables us to rethink something. And I always say this, people think when we're firm of purpose and we do what we say we're going to do, we're strong people and that's a good quality. Well, yes, it is a good quality. But if things change and circumstances do change, we are entitled to change our minds. And that means we've re-looked at a situation, seen it from a different angle, and now want to do something different with it. So That Mercury retrograde period from the 30th through to the 21st of February is a time to have reviews and rethinks. And sometimes things just come back into your life, whether they're people or whether they're opportunities, and that's a good thing as well. But yes, in a nutshell, I have to say it is a challenging month, as you can see. There's just so much going on. But sometimes, we have to go through the rapids before we get to the really nice, calm, beautiful waters that we're heading towards. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on my other videos, and of course on my audios and in my weekly forecasts on my website. Happy New Year. Bye for now.